Hello and welcome to Fantasy Focus Football, presented by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. My name is Daniel Dopp, here with my two best friends, Yates and Mike Clay. Guys, we got football tonight. Week 3, Thursday night football. Are you ready to stay up until midnight again watching a crappy football game?
If we can do ourselves a favor and find a way to start the game an hour and a half earlier, I don't care about those West Coast people. I really don't. I mean, truthfully, like, I love all of our fans all across the world, but I don't care about you guys during primetime games. When I'm sitting there at kickoff and I'm like, why am I not in bed right now?
I am
I
already
have to
tired.
watch a football game for 3 hours?
Yeah.
I got a bone to pick on this show this morning here, Daniel.
All right.
Yeah. Because you have every right to call me your best friend because we are best friends.
That's true.
I'm not sure as of about 20 minutes ago I'm still best friends with Mike.
Oh, my gosh.
So Mike walks into the studio on his, high and mighty high horse, thinking to himself, like, hey, I'm the greatest there is, the greatest there was, the greatest there ever will be.
That's my mindset.
Mike walks in, and do you guys remember the Play 60 commercial where it was the kid who started warming up to replace Cam
Newton? Absolutely.
That kid is available for the Panthers if they're looking for a quarterback
That's
right
true.
now.
That's true.
But as an aside, so he starts to crank his arm, and I'm obviously incapable of doing that. And Mike Clay walks in this morning. This is a video-only thing. Just
cranking that arm.
Hey, be careful, man. Don't hurt yourself.
You know what, Mike? Enough of your crap.
Wow.
And Mike, he starts to talk about how, my arm's a little tight. I have to stretch it out a little bit.
That's a little sore right here. It's
a little
it's
sore?
sore here from carrying the podcast on my back.
Oh,
wow.
even better.
Right here. I got a little tightness.
Even better.
Got to go to the chiropractor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I used to not believe in chiropractors, but now I stand corrected.
Let's get things kicked off with the opening drive.
I believe the thing is that, like, it's Mike. So he's the kind of person that, like, I have friends, my dad's born and raised in Hawaii. Like, he didn't believe in Advil until, like, he had, like, he was like, I just go into the ocean and that heals my pain instead, which, my dad's an amazing guy who has wonderfully simple approach to life in a lot of ways I really appreciate that about him. He ended up having a case of gout, which for those unfamiliar is like a severe inflammation in various muscles and joints. And so he needed more than Advil. He needed like the strongest Advil alive. But I used to love it where he'd be like, have you tried, like, rubbing seaweed on your pants? Like, they have a stain? It's like, Dad, no. I spilled ketchup on my pants. I don't need to rub them with seaweed. He'd be like, have you tried it yet? I'm like, okay, Dad, I need to put them in the washing machine. He'd be like, all right, well, if you say so, So Mike not believing in chiropractors, I'd be like,
love it.
Okay, fine.
That's why it's such a good joke, because the hook's there. Like, because some people are like, they're not real doctors. That's nonsense. And then you get them with the hook, and then...
That was a good dad joke. Did you use that on FF Now last year?
The first one ever.
That was the very first dad joke on FF Now?
Wow.
That was a good throwback. I love it.
This week's edition yet?
I have not. I wait until the show starts to come together because I find one that has a connection to one of the players. So
wow,
we'll get there. I have to come up with new ones because some of them are too long-winded. You guys can't follow, and then you don't laugh, and then it's it makes me look.
You got to dumb it down for us idiots on the set. That's why.
The On My Watch one was like maybe a little too long.
That was maybe a little bit. But at least I'm no Norm Macdonald, right? He does.
Oh my gosh, dude, the moth joke
jokes of all time.
The moth joke is the greatest joke that I've ever heard in the entire. Please head on, like, when you're done with our podcast on YouTube, go over and watch Conan and Norm do the moth joke. It is so hilarious.
He has a few like that that are just everyone it kills.
Yeah, you're getting there, Mike. You're not Norm Macdonald, but you're getting there.
It's been a long time.
All right. Speaking of throwbacks, Jordan Love practicing, guys. We saw Jordan Love practicing for the Green Bay Packers. I'm not sure what this means yet because we have not gotten any word as to where he's going to be, if he's going to play this week, if they're going to roll with Malik Willis again and just have another low-volume offense from a passing game perspective. But I do want to ask you, if Jordan Love is out there, are you back to where you were at with Green Bay Packers wide receivers, or are you going to kind of hold it slow until we see him back to full form?
Yeah, Adam Schefter said this morning there's a chance, right? I think he described it as like not quite 50-50, but I would have thought it was zero as of yesterday. So we're at least trending in the right direction for Jordan Love to be available at the latest in Week 4. Great news there. And yes, here's what I know is that if Jordan Love doesn't play this weekend, I'm not playing any Packer other than a guy named Josh Jacobs. They play the Titans this upcoming weekend, a team that I don't think Green Bay is going to need to outscore because the Titans have played pretty wretched offense so far themselves this season. So if Love does play, I think I will treat my Packers wide receivers with a little bit of a discount. That's partially because Jordan Love, I can't imagine, will be full strength, but partially because this Tennessee defense might actually be really legit as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Also, who do we really want to start there other than Jaden Reed? So he's the only one I'd consider a flex option in this one. Watson, I'd say it's like 60-40 in favor of Watson over Wicks, how they're splitting that other job. And then Romeo Dobbs is a full-timer, but he hasn't been a reliable, consistent fantasy option. So we're not there in Tucker Kraft yet. It's really just Jacobs, maybe Reed. And you can almost apply that even if Willis is under center. I mean, Reed's still a little close, although he didn't get as many carries as I thought he would. He only had 2 or 3, and they ran the ball like 55 times in that game. So
not even like that's not like a joke. Like that's like an actual number.
It was like
53 or whatever.
Carries. Yeah. It was like 53 called runs and like 18 called passes, something like that, which is absurdly run heavy. And Love, I don't think you need a chance starting him in this one. I would probably avoid, because even if he plays, I suspect they're still going to try to run the ball.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. Hypothetically, if you had the worst team known to mankind that you drafted with the first overall pick in the Fantasy Focus Show League, and your team includes Christian McCaffrey, T. Higgins, Jordan Love, DeAndre Hopkins, and other players that were either injured at the time of drafting or shortly after the time of drafting.
Just cut all of them.
That works. Again, I'm still looking for a good trade for Christian McCaffrey. I got an offer last night that I'm pondering from my cousin Griffey. It's not terrible. It's not like I wasn't mad at him when he sent it, but I also didn't immediately say to myself, time to pull the trigger here.
Sure.
But yes, Jordan Love is my starting quarterback in that league with Jared Goff as my second option. So,
And Goff
again, I'm taking all managerial responsibilities off my own plate now because it's not worked through 2 weeks.
Sure.
Maybe I got all my good managing out last year, but this year, barely not in the cards.
It's tough to be able to be good consistently year after year after year, Field. I mean, you win a championship one year, you're going to come back to earth sooner or later.
I am the Rams right now.
Yeah, I'm spacing Arizona, right, against the Lions?
Yeah.
Lions,
That's
Arizona.
not bad, yeah. I
Don't mind that.
No, we're not afraid of that secondary right now.
Mike, do you want to just say, earlier in the show you said something about how Jaden Reed was the only Green Bay Packers wide receiver. Can you just say it again for my own edification? It felt good hearing you say that.
No, I can't say that.
No?
No,
That's
I'm
too
not
bad.
gonna do it.
That's too bad. I guess we're out on Christian Watson and it's Jaden Reed.
For now we are.
Also, like, have you considered Bo Melton, who did have a nice run last week?
Mm-hmm.
It was one.
We said that all offseason. We're going
true.
to talk about the big 4 receivers there, and Bo Melton is going to he's going to score like 6 touchdowns.
He's going to have some
Have
weeks.
some
Melton
flash
brothers,
plays.
athletic types.
Yep. All right, we got a big show today. Bunch of stuff playing. We got the tight end time machine. We did not get to that yesterday. We're going to take a ride on the replacement roller coaster. Also, everything's on fire in a couple of offenses. We're going to try and figure some of those things out. But for right now, let's take a ride back on the tight end time machine, guys.
Okay.
Tight end has been awful so far this season. Tight ends 1 through 10, I just want to list this. Tight end 1, Isaiah Likely. 2, Brock Bowers. 3, George Kittle. All right, that's fine. 4, Trey McBride. I get that. Tight ends 5 through 10 right now in fantasy rankings through 2 weeks. Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, and Foster Moreau. Those are the top 10 tight ends in fantasy through 2
I
weeks.
had him ranked. I don't know about you.
That's how you guys had him coming into the season? Yeah, we got to figure out, because the way when you're looking at the screen, based on preseason rankings, half of those guys aren't even listed on this screen. It's been brutal, especially at the top if you had Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce. So we're going to do a little game. I'm going to pull out, oh, look, there just happens to be a Lions helmet here. How fortuitous of us to have a Lions helmet on set. That's great. I'm going to pull out a name. We're going to go through whoever's name gets pulled first gets to pick who the tight end 1 is if we're doing a re-rank for the rest of the season.
Right,
To
so
get
who
off
we
my
draft
chest
first?
right now, I am feeling Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr early this season. I can't speak to it for the rest of the year, but those first 2 weeks, like I feel like Baker and Derek Carr could go off.
Uh-oh.
Interesting.
Jordan Mason could be an interesting play as well.
Could be.
Did you just say that so we could cut that up and you could post it like as if you said it a few weeks ago? Here's his video. From
Well,
like
didn't we
August.
just enter the time machine? This is us back in August. I'm a little nervous about Jamar Chase those first couple weeks. Like I'm thinking like maybe 6 catches, 62 yards in week 1.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't
3
draft
catches.
CMC first overall if I was doing a draft right before the league.
You know how we drafted number 1 overall? Jordan Mason.
Oh, I was going to say
Absolutely.
Jaden Reed, but that's fine. Yeah,
Jaden Reed would be good too. Yeah.
not
Week
bad.
1, huge week for Jaden Reed in week 1.
I think that's coming. I think the breakout is finally going to be.
Honestly,
All right.
All right. Sorry.
I'm gonna-
Brendan Aubrey could be nice too.
That's a good call. That's fine.
Also, I am absolutely in no circumstance taking the Bengals as my week 1 eliminator challenge pick.
You should totally cut this for sure and just post it and say video from like August.
Yeah, put a little like black and
why
white
not?
filter or something like that on it so
Yeah.
it looks like it's in the past. All right, I got all 3 of our names in here. Whoever picks first is going to be the person that goes. We're going to go in a circle. So you're going to pick the number 1 tight end that you're going to have re-ranking for the rest of the season. And Field Yates, I unfortunately did pick your name. I know you don't love getting the number 1 overall pick, but I'm going to make you do it again here.
So why is
with
it
our
Foster
tight
Moreau?
ends?
Yeah. I am thinking really long and really hard about Brock Bowers, number 1 overall.
Yeah.
No way. Really?
and me
Wow.
both.
All right, interesting.
Okay, so
hey.
that elicits an interesting reaction from you. I am going to do something that I think is a little bit chicken, and I'm going to end up defaulting back to somebody else. But Brock Bowers has been incredible so far this season. He's the second highest scoring tight end. He has back-to-back games with at least 6 catches.
Yep.
He has 15 total catches for 156 yards. I'm going to end up defaulting to Sam Laporta. But I'm thinking long and hard about Brock Bowers, and that is drawing an interesting reaction from Mike Clay. You're not in.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't think it's a bad take by any means. I was just a little surprised she went with the rookie. But at the same time, I mean, he's
what have rookie tight
basically
ends
the
ever
best
done
so
in the
far. He's
NFL?
number 1 in targets, catches, and yardage among tight ends so far. So it's hard really to argue with you. He's been just super efficient so far. I believe he caught all 9 of his targets last week and was a big part of their comeback against Baltimore. So I'm a little lower right now just because there's so much talent at this position. I think they're going to get straightened out going forward. But it's interesting. And, hey, a rookie was tight end 1 last year, so it's not unheard of.
All right, so Sam Laporta is my actual pick with Brock Bowers. I just wanted to make that very clear. Like, he was a strong consideration.
And speaking of Laporta, because you kind of took the Bowers analysis, Laporta, number 1 in pass routes so far among tight ends. So it is a slow start, but he's out there. He's running routes. Nothing has really changed for him. Only 8 targets so far. Hasn't scored a touchdown. But in terms of snaps and pass routes, it's the equivalent to last year. So they had the fix-me game for St. Brown last week. Maybe it's the Laporta game this week. I'm not worried about him at all. I agree with you. I have him 3, which I'll get to why in a moment, but no major complaints there.
To Mike's point, Sam Laporta has been a massive, massive disappointment in PPR scoring, but in PPPR, points per pass route run, he's been awesome.
He's been really good.
So congratulations to those
I know
who
you're
play
making
PPP.
fun of me, but hey, that's those stats, those data points help us going forward. And
He
that's
does
what we're
sound
talking about.
like
We're
a
not talking about
classic,
weeks 1 and 2. We're talking about weeks 3 through 18.
He feels like a classic. We look back and we're like, remember that time that Sam Laporta was junk in the first 2 weeks? Like, haha.
That's most of these guys, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. By the way, I can't get my IFB over my ear right now. It looks like my ear is folded in half.
Use your right arm.
So that's just so mean. Mike is being
You are a
mean Mike
jerk.
Clay today is what it is.
Mean
Yeah.
Mike. Yeah, send that guy back to
I
prison.
walked in here and you guys just jumped all over me, so this is what you get. Okay?
Mike Clay, number 2 overall pick in this
not Sam
tight end
Laporta,
time
who is
machine.
All right, no, I'm going Trey McBride. 29%.
Interesting way of saving Travis Kelce. But sure.
No, Trey McBride. 29% target share. He is getting the massive volume that we hoped for, and honestly, it kind of aligns with where he was in the second half last season. I thought it might dip quite a bit because of Marvin Harrison and because tight ends generally don't have a target share pushing 30%, but it's been there for him so far. 13 points per game is 4th among tight ends, but you just love the combination of what he's produced already, especially relative to all the other tight ends, and of course that huge target share in an offense that's been really good so far. So I think he had a case for tight end 1 overall coming into the season, and he's shown that he belongs in that conversation so far.
For those that may remember on the show before I spent the rest of the day with bubble guts in the bathroom, I did have one of my hot takes that Trey McBride finishes as tight end 1 overall. So a nice play by you right there. A nice take right there by you, Mike.
I have no memories from that day. So
No, I've wiped everything from my memories.
I have also wiped everything, not from my memories, from my guts.
From everywhere else.
Just everything just ejected.
All right, so we got Trey McBride as tight end 2. I'm up for tight end number 3, and I am going to go with Brock Bowers. I'm not going to fade away this. I watched the guy in Sam Laporta do this as a rookie last year, and I think there is a part of it that having Gardner Minshew under center. This is a guy that has absolutely known how to be able to get his pass catchers involved. I actually kind of wish Gardner Minshew was back in Indianapolis for some of the guys we have. But to be honest, knowing that he's got Devontae Adams, he's going to continue to feed him. But Brock Bowers just looks too good. Fields, you laid out the reasons why. I don't want to make this any longer than I need to. I'm going to take Brock Bowers at tight end 3.
This is so interesting. Like, I didn't think Travis Kelce would be 4th available be available when we pick 4th. And I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. And it's really just like, this is like legacy play here, right? Because through 2 weeks, Travis Kelce has been very, 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 very bad for fantasy purposes. He is still an incredible player. I think he has the most impressive resume of any tight end in the history of the league. He is tight end 28 so far. He had 1 catch last week for 6 yards. Now, people can say, well, he had that 41-yard catch that was called back due to penalty. That is accurate, but if we did that for every single player in fantasy football, we'd have a lot of guys whose stats would look a lot better than they actually do. But this is just, like I'm not going to belabor this. I am placing my faith that the greatest tight end to ever play the game, along with perhaps the greatest quarterback to ever play the game by the time his career is over, are going to continue to find ways to have critical moments for a team that for at least the next 4 weeks and probably the next 2 months will be without the best weapon in the rushing attack, which is Isaiah Pacheco. This team may not have a choice but to become much more pass-heavy.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will start throwing, and I think we're going to see it this week too, because I just don't know that you lean into Hunt, Steele, and Pirine in the run game. I just think you're going to see a more, and that's what they've done traditionally over the past 5 years, just throw the ball a lot. So Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Xavier Worthy.
Could we see them? Not because Kareem Hunt signed with the Browns last year, but could we see that's not the reason why I thought of this parallel, but could we see the Chiefs do what the Browns did once Joe Flacco took over last year as the starting quarterback and become like super pass heavy, not rely nearly as much upon the run, and just air it out and make David Njoku an absolute baller in fantasy?
Yeah, I think that's what the Chiefs have generally done. So I don't know.
Two high safeties, man.
Yeah, that's a great article, by the way. Cody Alexander wrote, too. I read the whole thing today about the guy has written books about defense. I retweeted it today. Check that out. Just about why offense is down, like what's happening, why the league is where it's at. It's awesome.
So, to be clear, Mike is bragging that he can read because Daniel and I.
Congratulations, Mike.
I'm trying to help you guys out so you know what's going on in the NFL. But anyway, shout out to Cody. That's an awesome piece. But yeah, I mean, that's why Patrick Mahomes is so conservative now. They've just it's how defenses are scheming against them, and now it's a lot of just dump offs and running and short range stuff. And that's happened this year. 5.0 yard or average depth of target is lower than last season when we thought it would be higher this year. But maybe they make a little bit of an adjustment going forward as Field has some technical difficulties.
No, Daniel's being a good teammate.
I mean, I keep pulling it off. When you look that way, I pull it off. I'm messing with it.
That's better. Thank you for that, Daniel. I have a floppy ear right now. I also have this thing. My ears don't curl. It's a weird thing. I'm part elf.
Is that what it is?
That's what my kids think. So
is that your mother's side or your father's side?
With the elf
yeah.
ear, I think it's my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So one side's from Nantucket, the other side from the North Pole?
Yes.
As one does, right?
Yeah.
So it's like an elf, right? Will Ferrell's one. His dad's from New York and or something. I don't remember the whole story, but
for what it's worth,
something along those lines.
I can't believe that Travis Kelce, and when we did our hot take segment, I had Travis Kelce. My big hot take was he was going to finish outside the top 7. I did not think he was going to be tight end 28 through 2 weeks. But
the best part is every day that Daniel leaves the office in his car, he plays Taylor Swift music, but by covers of it, by like crappy bands you never heard of. As like, I told y'all.
I told you guys.
I told y'all.
I told you guys.
Yeah.
Through the first 2 weeks, hopefully things, though, I'm totally with you. Without Isaiah Pacheco, you'd think that they're going to have to funnel the passing game to the 2 guys they trust the most.
You're next.
Great. I think I'll get going. My next player here, I believe he's 3rd right now in scoring, George Kittle.
Yep.
I actually have him 2. And there's a couple reasons for this.
Value pick for you.
Included, so I like this one. 8 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown last week against the Vikings, averaging 14 points per game now. And again, I'm considering, had we evaluated these guys going into the season, we would have thought about who's available in the offense. And one of the reasons we're a little lower on Kittle, even though we led all tight ends in receiving yards last year, was all the mouths to feed. Well, right now, who knows when Christian McCaffrey and his 20% target share are coming back. Keep in mind, Jordan Mason has a 3% target share. They're not throwing to the running backs at all. They're spreading those targets to other guys right now. And also, Deebo Samuel's out for a few weeks. So George Kittle, short term, I believe he's my tight end 1 in my ranks this week. And he's set up for a really big season, certainly for the next month or so. So I'm pretty high on him in these ranks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
One of the few that had a good game so far, too.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking for anyone that's really giving you life at the tight end position through the first 2 weeks. This guy that I'm going to go with here at tight end 5. Excuse me. Tight end 5.
6 for you.
6.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, because you guys both.
I'm keeping track.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so one of us has to around here.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm going to go with the guy that has not done very well through the first 2 weeks.
Ooh. This is my pick, so hopefully you're not taking it.
And it's going to be Dalton Kincaid.
Dang.
Oh, okay. All right.
Listen, I still believe in this offense. I still believe in Dalton Kincaid. We talked about it. I don't think he's in a spot where he's maybe going to get to the 100 catches that I forecasted in the preseason. Seeing the way that Josh Allen is, kind of dividing this target share to a little bit of everybody. But I think sooner or later we get to the spot where it's like Dalton Kincaid still becomes one of those trusted safety blankets for Josh Allen in this offense. I don't even want to read
the
the
most
stats.
fascinating one of all, in my opinion. Because he's young. Like, I guess Sam Laporta will fall in this category as well.
He's there too.
But it's like Dalton Kincaid, the stars seem to align for him to have a monster breakout season that would start in week 1. Like with Laporta, it's not like the Lions, like if anything, they got better around Laporta this offseason with the emergence of Jameson Williams. Nobody in Buffalo is like, I mean, you can't feed Dalton Kincaid because you're too busy feeding Curtis Samuel. He's playing like 35% of the snaps right now. Yep. So it's a bizarre one that he has been so moderately targeted through 2 games. But a nice pick there.
I'm just going to keep trusting that Bills offense and Josh Allen to get things right.
Yep. I think there's 2 things here, one a negative, one a positive. The negative is that when Ken Dorsey was calling the plays for the Bills, they were extremely pass heavy. when they got rid of him and brought in Joe Brady, they've been extremely run heavy. And I thought this season maybe it meets in the middle, and maybe it will eventually. That has not been the case through 2 weeks. They are still extremely run heavy, so that's going to limit targets for these pass catchers. On the positive side, though, so Kincaid had the dud in week 1. He had 11 yards, 1 catch. Week 2, 4 targets, 33 yards, which sounds bad, but keep in mind they barely threw the ball. They were dominating that in Miami in that game. 70% route participation, and he had a 22% target share in week 2. So that usage going forward, even if they're run heavy, will be fine. He's still going to be a good tight end 1. So I would stay patient with Kincaid.
So I'm up next here. I've got pick number 7. I'm taking Mark Andrews. Again, kind of the old reliable here. Had a much better week in week 2 than he did in week 1. On top of the fact that Andrews had 5 catches in week 2 as opposed to his 1 catch in week 1. I'm sorry, 3 catches for 14 yards in week 1, but his very, very pedestrian day in week 1. Isaiah Likely did not have a big day. Isaiah Likely had just 2 catches for 23 yards in week 2, was not nearly the factor that he was in week 1, which is bad news for everybody who spent a lot of money on in fab leagues on Isaiah Likely, or those that may have felt like he was worth a start in week 2, but I'll take Mark Andrews, still a big part of this offense.
Yeah, I like it. I have him at 5. And he bounced back. He was the only tight end over 6 targets last week, so like it. I'm going to stick with someone here as well that we had ranked in this range coming into the league, Evan Ingram. 21% target share in week 1. That's a big number for a tight end. It's not far off where he was last season. He missed week 2, but it doesn't sound like it's a major injury. Like,
they haven't started practicing yet. They start today because they play.
I don't know if he'll play today or this week, but it should be a short-term thing. So I'm going to stick with Ingram here at tight end 8.
I like that. Especially, it's a lot. That's an easier pick, though, Mike, because you've barely even seen him this year, right? Like, we still expect him, especially with where things are at in that offense. Doesn't feel like Christian Kirk is the safety blanket. Like, if anyone, it's kind of.
And he hasn't done anything.
No.
I mean,
so
that's true, actually. The offense has been rough.
It's been really difficult. All right, then I'm going to go with a guy who has been hurt as well, just like Evan Ingram. I'm going to go with Jake Ferguson.
Nice pick. Yeah.
Based on what Jake Ferguson did last year, he was tight end 9 last year, had 103 targets. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, is there anyone that really gives you a ton of confidence in the pass catching realm here in Dallas? Jalen Tolbert hasn't really done it in a major way. Brandon Cooks is Brandon Cooks, but he's starting to fade in certain circles here. So for me, even though I haven't seen him, obviously banged up, got to figure out where things are at with him. But I still think rest of season, when you get this Dallas Cowboys offense clicking, like I know that Dak Prescott is eventually going to be doing, I'm going to be having Jake Ferguson as a top 10 tight end basically week in and week out.
If it doesn't happen this weekend, I do think better days are ahead for Dallas starting next Thursday night as they play the Giants. Back-to-back weeks with Thursday night football at the Meadowlands.
Nice.
Those that like weird scheduling quirks. I'm assuming this is the last pick, number 10.
Last pick,
right?
number 10.
I will make it Kyle Pitts. And I didn't have to think about this one for a ton of time because there is no perfect option. So I'm just going to go with the player that I had highest ranked coming into the season that is healthy, with David Njoku now out right now for at least week 3 and potentially more. It's Kyle Pitts, back-to-back games with 3 catches. I'll say this. While I still have like a relatively low ceiling in my mind for what Kyle Pitts can be relative to the rest of the players that have been drafted ahead of him, I think the Falcons' offense is going to continue to get better by the way.
Great.
I'm optimistic that there will be an overall improvement for both Kyle Pitts and Drake London. I still think it'll be the Bijan show with Drake London next up. Kyle Pitts filling a little bit of that third offensive weapon role and still fantasy relevant tight end role, so he fits in at number 10 for me.
Yep. Only 6 targets. Need more from him to get any higher in these rankings. I think that's a good list. Should I read some near misses?
I was going to say David Njoku. Is he like the obvious odd man out?
Yeah, I had him at 10, so Njoku. And then the next in order, you guys could yell at me if you disagree with these because I just put a couple more in here. Dallas Goedert, Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry, who leads all tight ends in target share so far, 31%. T.J. Hawkinson, he's getting closer to a return, so he's going to start working his way up the ranks. And Sam Darnold's look good, so keep in mind, if you're in a tough spot at tight end, keep an eye out for him. Pat Freiermuth, 20% target share. Dalton Schultz, not enough targets so far, 3 in both games. And then 18, interesting one, Tucker Kraft. Once Love's back, he's running all the routes. He's out-snapping Musgrave 108 to 44. Yeah. If he becomes consistent par, gets even a 15-18% target share in that offense, Kraft could be a thing. So keep an eye on him too. He's out there in a lot of waiver.
The only part that makes me nervous about all the snaps for Tucker Kraft is that he is one of the most unique and dominant blockers amongst all tight ends in the NFL. That a lot of the work right now he's doing is stuff that does not count for fantasy football purposes, but he is playing a ton. 96% of the snaps in the first game for Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, and if he's doing that, he's still running he's running most of the routes. Like he might block a little pass block here or there, but generally he's going to release and run a pass route. So There's something to be said there. I'm keeping an eye on him for sure, especially in leagues where I'm in trouble at tight end.
All right, let's take a look back at the top 10 that we chose as a part of our tight end re-rank, going back in the tight end time machine. If we were going to re-rank these guys for the 2024 season, we're starting with Sam Laporta. Coming up second, Trey McBride. Then Brock Bowers, the rookie, moving ahead of Travis Kelce, who comes in at 4. George Kittle at 5, Dalton Kincaid at 6, Mark Andrews at 7, Evan Ingram and Jake Ferguson at 8 and 9, a couple of injured tight ends there. And then Kyle Pitts rounding out our top 10 at the tight end.
No major bombs there. I think we did a pretty good job.
I think that's a pretty good spot, yeah.
I thought Daniel and I did a good job.
That was a good segment. You and I did the.
Okay, so you hate George Kittle. Got that. Who else do you hate? Trey McBride.
Mike Clay, maybe?
I got both of my top 2 tight ends, so I'm happy with how.
Nice draft by Mike then. Nice job, Mike.
Let's go, Mike.
My top 2 options.
Still mad at you, that's all.
All right, let's talk about the replacement roller coaster. We got a bunch of injured players, and we got to figure out what we're going to do with them. When we're looking at look at Mike, obviously in the back by himself. Field and I sitting in the same car. If you're not watching our YouTube, you need to, because our producer Tyler is so good at being able to put together these full screens for us.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after the show.
Let's talk with Deebo Samuel. If Deebo Samuel, San Francisco 49ers, guys.
He's out. Not
Deebo is correct. Deebo is out. So the replacement roller coaster is how much are we trusting both Brandon Aiyuk and Juwan Jennings? I'm just going to say very quickly on Brandon Aiyuk, 100% trust. I don't care how slow he started. I don't care where things are at with him. Like, he is a guy that is a set it and forget it starter for me here in week 3. You mentioned how much Brock Purdy has been throwing the last couple of shows. Feel Brock Purdy leads the NFL in passing yards. The real question mark is Juwan Jennings, and do you think that he can be a potential flex play here in week 3? Are you trusting him in that situation, or would you want to see it first, more likely than not?
So I think there is certainly, I think this is a good football player. I do believe Juwan Jennings is like a representative starting wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think this is one where a player gets put into a role that he is no match for. So that's good news here on Juwan Jennings. Since the start of last season, he has a total, Juwan Jennings, of 6.4% of the team's targets when Deebo is on the field.
Yep.
That's not a good number.
Nope.
Deebo is off the field. That number jumps to 11%. So a slightly better target share for sure. And I think that number jumps even more this week. If it jumps up to like 13 to 15%, good enough to be a borderline wide receiver 3-4 for me.
Can I say this? I will bet that number would be higher in part because I'll bet a lot of those weeks Christian McCaffrey was still a part of that offense, catching a lot of passes, and that's going to be here, obviously, in week 3.
No doubt. 2 games last year Deebo missed. Juwan Jennings in one game had 9 targets for 54 yards. That's good. I mean, you're getting 9 targets.
That's
the other game, guys, he had 0 targets. So not
not
great. But you may recall one of his recent games was the Super Bowl. Remember what he did in the Super Bowl?
Threw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, and he caught one too. He had 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. He only has 2 touchdown games in his career. So and in week 1 he had 64 yards. So he's done some things. 2 of his last 3 games have been pretty good. So
we mentioned this yesterday on the show, but just to reiterate, and go look this up to see exactly what class he was in. He was the #1 quarterback prospect coming out of high school, ahead of, and it was like, it might have been C.J. Stroud's class. I mean, no, probably not C.J. It was
a little before that.
Because he's a little bit older. It was some quarterback class that you're like, wait, Juwan Jennings is ahead of all of these guys? How is that even possible? But he is a sick athlete.
Yeah, he's an interesting one when he hits free agency. Well, they might keep him.
He just signed an extension.
Yeah, I guess he will stick around.
He's got 2 more years now.
Because they're going to probably be Aiyuk will stay. So Deebo, this might be it for Deebo. Aiyuk, Pearsall, and Jennings.
You know what? 49ers fans have a lot going on right now. Mike.
Put the
can't
brakes,
bring up
Mike.
off-season dilemmas.
Read the room a little bit, Mike Clay.
Out in front here.
It does help for me if you are going to start Juwan Jennings. They're taking on the Rams, a defense that can be, right now, super banged up. So you're looking at something.
Very much.
Oh, no doubt.
Very positive situation there. All right. 2 other wide receivers that are out for the Los Angeles Rams, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. We've been talking about these guys mostly in the waiver wire situation, Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson. Guys, I look at Demarcus Robinson as the floor play if you're going to start someone here, and Tyler Johnson as the ceiling play. I guess if you need a big week, you see your projections are down, just because we've seen it a little bit more from Demarcus Robinson, that consistency last year with Matthew Stafford. Are you starting either one of them, though, this week, Mike Clay? Do you have enough confidence in them against this 49ers defense?
I have Robinson the highest. I have him wide receiver 34. So he's in the flex conversation if you're in a tough spot. Again, there's a lot of wide receiver injuries, so you might need someone like Robinson. The stat lines, though, for Robinson and Tyler Johnson, almost identical so far. 92 yards on 11 targets for Robinson, 99 yards on 10 targets for Tyler Johnson so far. They're both full-time players. They might both play 100% of the snaps, certainly 95% plus. And then they'll have a third receiver like Jordan Whittington, the rookie, on the field as the other one, Tutu Atwell mixed in a little bit. That's going to be kind of where they run their offense, or maybe some Colby Parkinson as well. Hopefully they increase his usage. But, yeah, I think Robinson's the safer flex play. But Johnson's, he could get you 10, 12 points as well.
Sean McVay's alluded to the possibility of leading less on 3 wide receivers on the field for every snap because they may not have a choice. But still, I do think that Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson will be close to 100% players. Like Mike said, and these guys get the job done in like the exact opposite ways, or at least have so far this season. Pretty much everything that Demarcus Robinson does is at the catch, right? Just 8.7% of his yards have come after the catch. Meanwhile, Tyler Johnson averages the second most yards after the catch per catch this year, trailing only A.J. Brown amongst all players at least 10 targets. So not a massive group, and it's only 2 games, but still, like, I think that's less about the skill set of Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson and more about how they are utilized within this offense, right? So anyways, I have Johnson ranked wide receiver 37. Excuse me. Robinson wide receiver 37. Tyler Johnson as wide receiver 40. I'm a bit nervous. They're so well coached that I never want to get totally out on a Rams offense. But I am a touch concerned that all these injuries just mount up, and it's like a 27-9 game on Sunday, and San Francisco just smothers them.
I mean, you mentioned it's not just the wide receivers; the offensive line is in real peril right now. Obviously, and Matthew Stafford is not the kind of guy to necessarily roll out of the pocket, keep things super alive with his legs. So
there was a time when the San Francisco Giants, it was like every other year they were dominant in MLB.
Baseball.
Oh,
okay.
MLB.
I was like, you said San Francisco Giants. I'm trying to make sure.
And it was like they only wear, that's the PLL, thank you, though. Okay. They only win the World Series in the even number years. And then the years in between, they're just trash or not good. Maybe the Rams like the every other year team now, right?
Okay.
Like they win the Super Bowl, they take a year off, they come back, make the playoffs. Now they take their year off. It just feels like the injuries have totally undone the optimism here. And do you want to hit the Cooper Kupp news right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Talking about them. Yesterday, Sean McVay, and you got to be careful with like just taking the headline and not figuring out a little bit more of what the context is surrounding that headline. He said they're not going to place Cooper Kupp on IR right now. He did not slam the door shut on Cooper Kupp being placed on IR eventually. He said it was not a season-ending injury. That's good news. One thing to remind people is that teams are only allowed a certain number of players to be placed on IR and eventually be brought back. It's 8 for the full season. So you have to be judicious. If you've already used half of those and it's week 3, you might say to yourself, if we think this could be a 3-game absence, but it might be a 6-game absence, I don't know that for a fact, but as an example, you might not IR the guy because you don't want to waste a player who's definitely going to miss at least 4 games. On top of that, like, the Rams are running out of able bodies to sign to the active roster. Like, you usually IR a guy because, like, you need to elevate someone from the practice squad. The Rams practice squad's been, like, chewed up to pieces already.
Not great. It's not been great.
Or their roster, I should say, in general, has been chewed up to pieces.
I did, again, I'm going to say this one more time. As much as we have to say it, I've gotten a bunch of DMs and people saying, like, can you please put Cooper Kupp as out? Can you please put him on the IR like he's going to be? We don't do that. We contract out to an agency that does a really great job with it. When the team officially does it, then our game will do it. But we don't just willy-nilly do injury designations. There's a reason why we have not listed a guy out. It's because he's not out yet. The team has not ruled him out. Period. End of story. End of sentence.
Yeah, so if you wanted to scream into an abyss, you would go to the team handles, but they're not going to read them anyway, so you're wasting your time completely.
Yeah. Well, just to that point, like Deebo right now has a big D for doubtful next to his name because while Kyle Shanahan said it's going to be a couple of weeks, if Deebo Samuel wakes up tomorrow and feels amazing, you think the 49ers are going to say, nah, you know what? Kyle said on Monday you're out, so we're good.
Yep.
Yeah. ESPN put him on the IR spot.
So we already got to sit out.
Friday, when game statuses are announced for all the Sunday games, when they declare a player out, he becomes IR eligible.
Yep, that's how that'll work.
A point of clarity, I know that I can never tell now if people are just trolling us when they tweeted us about that. So feel free to keep trolling us if you have been.
At Mike Clay
if
NFL.
If you're being serious about it, here is the answer that you are looking for.
Yes, correct. All right, let's talk about the Eagles. Speaking of at Mike Clay NFL, A.J. Brown is out for this one as well.
We think.
Yes.
He did not practice yesterday.
Lisa Salter said
a couple of games.
That he should miss it. He said that he was going to miss a couple of weeks when talking on that Monday Night Football broadcast.
The Eagles kind of said, we'll see, which I think was as much gamesmanship as anything else.
Mike, assuming that there is no A.J. Brown, I got 2 pass catchers that I think I would look at here, and it's Devontae Smith and the tight end Dallas Goedert. Seems like Devontae Smith is an obvious must start if there's no A.J. Brown.
Yeah, we were looking at it on Monday night to see how they'd be deployed, and it was the Devontae Smith show again. He had a big week 1 as well, 7 for 84 and 8 targets in the opener, and then week 2 with no A.J. Brown up to 10 targets. It's 68, played 68 snaps, basically every single play, 7 for 76 and a touchdown. So he's been one of the top fantasy receivers so far. 2 really strong games. Goddard was quiet, 38 yards on 4 targets. He hasn't been very productive, much like all other tight ends this year, but he's played 89% of the snaps. He's still the normal, same old Dallas Goedert, who's a fringe tight end one.
Question. Marshawn Lattimore returned to practice yesterday for the Saints. Is Devontae playing too many slot snaps to expect any potential shadow?
He played outside more in week 2, as we talked about on the show, because they have, Britton Covey's playing more, and they're going to put him in the slot, not in the outside. He actually operated as the 3. So, yeah, he'll play outside more. Lattimore, I don't know how super scared we are of him right now. I mean, he misses so much time, and he hasn't been playing that A-plus ball for quite a while. But Deebo on the other side is excellent. So they, overall, Khalil McKinstry, they have just a good overall secondary, certainly at the cornerback position. So I'm not super worried about it because, especially the way the Saints are playing right now, the Eagles are going to have to throw the ball in this one. You expect it to be a competitive game.
Yeah, when there has been no A.J. Brown, there is a slight boost in targets for Dallas Goedert. Not a massive amount, but goes from a 14% target share to an 18% target share. So
take that.
You like to be able to, you'll take anything that is positive right now at the tight end position for what it's worth. At the running back spot, how about moving over to the Chiefs? Isaiah Pacheco, we know, is going to be out for a number of weeks, and we talked about this. Carson Steele and Samaje Perine and Kareem Hunt all going to be a part of this backfield. Guys, if I had to start one of them, I guess I would go with Carson Steele because I would think that maybe he's going to get the early down work. He maybe gets the goal line work in this offense. I don't expect them to be down and have it be game scripted towards Samaje Perine, even though he's a better pass catcher. And Patrick Mahomes, really good at targeting running backs over the last couple of years. 4th most targets? 4th most, hold on, I had it right here. 4th most completions to running backs over the last 2 seasons.
Okay,
which is a lot.
That's a good note.
So, but I would go with Carson Steele, but I don't really want to start any of them if I can help it.
Yeah, and get ready for the curveball here. But Keontae Ingram was signed to the active roster yesterday, and Keontae Ingram, he might play. Everybody is now fixated on Kareem Hunt for understandable reasons. He's a bigger name and has been a successful player with the Chiefs in his first tenure there. But Keontae Ingram could play some snaps too. So I would say my general rule of thumb is I would prefer to avoid the Chiefs' backfield if you play in a deep league or if you've been hit hard by the injury bug in a 10 or 12-team league, and I could just start one of them, it would be Carson Steele.
Yeah, I think I'll say this from the Steele and Perine perspective. I would be more concerned about them if they did not sign Ingram yet. They're going to sign a 3rd running back no matter what. Yeah. No team goes into a game with 2 running backs. If it was Hunt on Saturday, which it still could be for a call-up on Saturday evening, I'd be a little more concerned that he's going to get run and play 20 snaps or something, and then that hurts them. With Ingram there, probably more likely to be the depth guy than Hunt, which helps Steele and Perine kind of handle the load. This week, by the way, Steele so far has been, when he's on the field, it's been to run the football. When Perine's been out there, which again, it's a handful of snaps each, it's been to catch the football, and that's probably how they deploy him in this game.
Atlanta Falcons, the 5th fewest points to running backs through the first 2 weeks. They did have the Steelers in week 1, but then they had Saquon in week 2. So, Falcons do seem to have a good run defense. We'll see how that
Falcons have a good defense in general.
Yeah.
They do have a good it's just, the offense that in week 1 left us wanting a whole lot more.
By the way, Perine, 45-plus catches each of the last 2 seasons, kind of quietly, but 45-plus. It's big numbers. So if they get him up to speed with this offense, he could have a substantial role. And again, an offense we expect to throw more.
Thanks for taking a ride on the replacement roller coaster with us.
You're welcome.
Mike and I did a bit a long time ago for the fantasy show where we had to go on a roller coaster here at Lake Compounce. They made me do it over and over and over again. Do you remember that?
We did. Yeah, the cameras kept falling off, and it barely worked.
Yeah.
How did you feel after?
The audio was.
I am not a big roller coaster fan, if I am honest.
It wasn't fun.
I loved it.
I have a story that's it's not the same in that it involves a roller coaster, but the same in that it involved me doing something over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah?
It was not comfortable. So I've been at ESPN for 7-8 years ago. They were working on this potential show. They were kind of doing a pilot of it. It involved Trey Wingo. I think it was kind of like a sketch comedy with a sports hook in it that I don't ever think made it to the air. But they needed somebody to go down to the cafeteria, and it was this one scene where this person was stuffing his face. And the first thing he did was he ate a chicken tender. Then he ate a donut. Then he took a sip of a soda. Then he had a glass, a milkshake. Then he had a cupcake. And I remember the last thing was a cupcake with French fries as the final thing. And we had to do this like 12, and like it was one of those where the camera stayed on you until you finished the bite, and they were like, "We'll get Field involved." Well, he'll do it, right? I was like, "Yeah, of course I'll do it. Whatever."
Oh, that's
I like 12 times. I ate like 12 like Pop-'em donuts and like 12 mini cupcakes.
You actually eat it?
And ate it all, yeah.
I feel like that's the rookie mistake, right? Because when you get done with the take, you're supposed to be able to spit it out because you've got to do that so many times.
Where they kept going and going and
Dude,
going.
that's tough.
Terrible idea.
That's tough.
I remember that day being a little better than the recent hot sauce day, but not much better.
When he said, "I have to do this thing day after day after day," I thought that's about doing the pod with me. I thought it was where.
Oh man!
Oh, that'd have been a good
missed opportunity.
Yeah,
Dang it. Can we rewind the podcast? This isn't live, is it?
I write Fields jokes actually.
Speaking of that, everything's on fire in a handful of offenses. I hate to go from one negative segment to another negative segment.
Speaking of burning stomach.
This is fantasy football right now. Everything's on fire in a number of offenses. Let's talk about the Bengals, who have been difficult. You look at everything that has happened here for Cincinnati. I was just trying to figure out ahead of time. Obviously, T. Higgins' status still up in the air. They're playing the second of Monday Night Football. Have not gotten a practice.
They'll have their first
report
practice today. Yep.
So we'll see where that lands. That'll be a big one for me. Obviously, we would love to see this offense with both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in it.
The vibes seem better this week for T.
They do.
Yep.
They do. So hopefully that trends in the right direction. Let's start at the top, though, with Joe Burrow. I mean, is this a spot where taking on this defense, going up against the Commanders? Commanders have given up the most fantasy points this season to quarterbacks. Yeah. Is this that fix-me game that Mike Clay often talks about for Joe Burrow?
I should have. Could I wear? You guys wouldn't let me, but I wanted to wear like a sexy fireman suit, and, like put the fire out, because the Washington Commanders defense is going to put the fire out for this one.
Mike, why don't you do that on tomorrow's show?
Okay, just show up dressed as a sexy fireman.
Please.
Turns out I'm actually off tomorrow, and so is Daniel, and so is Stefania. So it's going to be a solo, just a monologue.
A calendar, a fantasy-focused firefighter calendar. That's all Mike Clay.
Okay, I'm in. So, do you think that would hurt the ratings or help the ratings?
No, that would help the ratings.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Washington, most passing touchdowns allowed so far with 6. Most fantasy points to quarterbacks, 18 points to Daniel Jones, 29.7 to Baker Mayfield. I think they get going this week. I'm high on Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Not high enough. I've got him as quarterback 2. You've got him as quarterback 6.
Really? You have him too?
He's all the way up there.
No way, wow.
A couple things. Beyond the numbers you just gave, meaning the Commanders, have allowed the most passing touchdowns to anybody this season. They are tied for the fewest picks this year because they have 0, along with a handful of other teams, including some good defenses, by the way. Like interceptions are more random than touchdown passes allowed.
Yep.
And Joe Burrow's pissed off. He's pissed off.
Seems
he talked about that was, he said it was like one of the hardest, if not the hardest losses of his career last Sunday. It was week 2 of the regular season. Speaks to how frustrating that loss was. I do not envy the Commanders for playing the Bengals on Monday night. I don't know where this game is. This game
is in Cincinnati.
In Cincy, yeah. Playing at home. I think Joe Burrow comes out on fire in the good way, not in the bad way.
I've got him listed at QB9. Part of that early ranking was because I wasn't sure if T. Higgins was going to play. Knowing that we're getting some positivity there, that helps me a lot.
Yeah, not crazy.
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Malik Neighbors all have 22-plus fantasy points against Washington. It's only been 2 games.
It's the Jamar Chase show. Faux show.
Points. It should be all Chase here.
Okay, so if Jamar Chase, we know for a fact, is going to be starting, if T. Higgins rolls out there, are you going to roll out with him first week of the season?
No, and I have a couple. Mike, you take it. Then
mine is just the obvious, which is like first game back off the injury, probably limited. They've been using all these other guys who like Josie Voss and Trent Irwin, so I'm just going to play that conservative.
You're going to expect that this team is going to be ahead, and they're not going to need to throw the ball and use him late as a part of that.
Or just like they might say, hey, you're back, but you're playing 25 snaps.
Well, look at Andre Hopkins, weeks 1 and 2. He's barely playing. He's their 4th receiver, just rotating in. That applied to week 1 and week 2 for Hopkins. Yeah.
All right, so we know that the Commanders are bad against quarterbacks and that wide receivers, Mike, you just told us, have feasted against them. What about the running back spot? Because this backfield, it feels like we've totally figured it out now through the first 2 weeks. This is Zach Moss's backfield.
Right.
Chase Brown is not the guy that we thought he was going to be.
Or at least know how this works, right?
Well, this is the week.
The minute we say that, like, it's definitively the Zach Moss backfield, Chase Brown's going to have 19 carries in the first half on Monday night.
Please don't do that.
I'm ranking Zach Moss as RB22 because while the Commanders are very, very bad against the pass, I think the Bengals can still run the football enough, and the opportunity to move the ball down the field through the air and then finish it on the ground with a goal line carry for Zach Moss, I do believe is important.
Yeah, we talk about Washington's struggles against receivers and quarterbacks. Well, they've allowed 14 or more fantasy points to both Devin Singletary and Rachaad White so far this season. So if Moss gets you, I have him at 13.9, funny enough. So if he gets right in that range, that's going to be fine for a flex or a fringe RB2. I'm with you. Moss hasn't exactly lit it up so far, 108 yards and 24 touches. Brown only has 7 carries, but he's averaging 6 yards per carry. He's been effective, just not getting enough targets, not enough involvement in the passing game. So I think Brown's role may increase as the year goes on, but for now, yeah, it's Zach Moss.
Zach Moss show. All right, let's talk about the Denver running back room.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great, does it? I mean, we were really hoping Javonte Williams was going to be a bigger part of this offense. My big concern at this point is how often is Javonte Williams going to be game scripted out of games, or how much passing
They
usage
play
will he
such
get?
good defense that they should be okay. And like, as far as the game script is
Tampa Bay
concerned,
Buccaneers have looked pretty good.
they have looked really good. Javonte looked better in week 2. So that's about as far as I'm going to go right now.
Okay.
Javonte looked better and was certainly more involved in week 2. But still, the first 2 weeks have not been the returns that we were hoping for. I am not selling all of my Javonte stock, but I've got him as RB29 this week.
If you want to feel good about Javonte Williams, the other running backs are doing horrific as well. Jaleel McLaughlin's probably doing worse than him. And you're right, they expanded Javonte's role last week, even though he's averaging 2 yards per carry. Denver, as a team, their backfield is 30th in fantasy points so far, the running back position. However, Tampa Bay, they're playing well overall, but not against running backs. 3rd most fantasy points allowed. 3 running backs have already hit 17 points against them. So I'll tell you what, if Javonte doesn't get going this week, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just not happening. And this is a year and 2 games now. It hasn't happened.
Brian Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery all hit 17 fantasy points.
Yep.
I like it when we have the same notes. 3rd most fantasy points to running backs, Mike. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like
I did see Mike steal your notebook prior to the
That's
show.
what it was.
so
I knew.
it made
Dang
more
it!
sense.
I should have gone that way.
It's like the water boy. I stole your playbook. And
That's exactly what it is. How about Bears running backs? DeAndre Swift.
This is
one
the
has
week,
been really
man.
difficult.
This
You
is the
think
week.
so?
I want to give you guys a little question here. And our friend, second Trey Wingo mentioned, which is always a good thing when you mention Trey Wingo on the show. The Colts have allowed the most rushing yards through 2 games to begin a season since fill in the blank.
the most
2007.
Lions in
How dare you?
3 years ago. I don't know.
1978
I was close.
Colts as well. Also the Colts, yeah.
1978. Oh my God, so that's like around Super Bowl 10 or something. What's that?
A long time ago, put it that way. Before all of us were born, the Colts, that's how bad they were on the run defense side that time back in 78, and they are bad again in 2024. This is the moment here for DeAndre Swift. I mean, obviously he had some value as a receiver as well, and he has rushed the ball extremely inefficiently. On top of the fact that what we just discussed with the historically bad start for the Colts defense, one more time. No DeForest Buckner.
Yeah,
He's now on IR.
It's a massive.
Leatu Latu didn't practice yesterday. This Colts defensive front could be without, I would say, easily its best player, and then its perhaps second most promising player in Leatu Latu.
Yeah, and Swift has played 2/3 of the snaps so far, so he's clearly the featured running back. In fact, Travis Homer is their number 2. We've talked about that, which is a good sign for Swift. He has just clear control of this backfield. They've played Houston and Tennessee so far, now Indy, which is kind of a weird schedule quirk to your point.
They don't play an NFC North team until like week 10.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, this should be an easier matchup. Houston and Tennessee are better run defenses, so this is Swift's chance.
This feels like and I don't want to say he's like a rich man's version of Zamir White, but it feels like we've seen a guy struggle through the first 2 weeks, and this is a matchup that they should be able to take advantage of. 24 carries for 48 yards through the first 2 weeks. That's 2 yards per carry. I need to see a little bit more passing game usage because Khalil Herbert is the goal line guy. DeAndre Swift is just not going to be the guy inside the 5.
They're just a mess in the passing game right now, but I just don't believe the Bears are going to be that bad in the passing game for too long. Yeah. I'm a believer in Caleb Williams, man. Like, so many of my pre-draft priors, I've been excited to see these guys look what they're supposed to look like. Brock Bowers, you're like, this guy's an unbelievable player. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., like, Jaden Daniels has done some of the stuff that we love from Jaden as a player. Caleb's going to have that moment soon. A reminder, Texans 0-2. C.J. Stroud looked very, very average through 2 weeks last season. He talked about this yesterday. It started to click for him around week 3 or 4. I hope it starts to click for Caleb around week 3 or 4.
And that happens. I mean, we've talked about some of the best quarterbacks ever were atrocious. Obviously Peyton Manning's the famous one with the NFL interception record as a rookie.
Yeah.
And he turned out okay, I'm told. He's pretty good. Now he's a much better even commentator than all of us combined. But
it's actually really true.
Yeah, those guys are awesome. I love that broadcast. especially with Belichick now, which is
I love having
another
Bill
level.
with both.
Oh my God, I love
the football dorkiness there is so great. Like you could tell that like the
It's
three of them are
entertaining,
sitting
too.
there. Oh no, it's obviously entertaining as heck. The best part about it is when you can tell they're like incredulous or like, why on earth are you running cover 3 on 2nd and 17 in the plus 45-yard line? You know, like that's what their brain's probably saying. Meanwhile, they're like, yeah, you know, interesting coverage concept there by insert team. You know, like
I love Peyton not being able to keep his emotions in check. It's like he's not on the field anymore, so he can just let it all out and show his
Really good.
disappointment as a part of it. It's so great.
Anyways.
Speaking of disappointment, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers offense.
Okay, no.
You know what? I'll just do
know,
it quick. I'll do it
there's
quick.
some
Let's just do it
optimism
quick.
now, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it quick. Mike said it yesterday. He talked about how Andy Dalton was totally fine for the Saints the last time he was a starter for a prolonged period of time.
2022.
Totally fine from a fantasy perspective. Like
No, I
elevating-
mean like keeping the operation afloat.
Okay.
And that's, to me, like, that's the nuts and bolts of the analysis with Deontay Johnson. My expectations for Chuba are what they are. I didn't feel like coming into the season he had a particularly high ceiling. I don't feel like he has a particularly high ceiling right now. I don't believe that Deontay Johnson's ceiling is as high as I had hoped for in the preseason. Like, maybe this guy could sneak into the top 20 for wide receivers because he commands an insane target share. But I do still believe, with due respect to Adam Thielen, that if I had to bet on one Panthers wide receiver to lead the team in targets by a healthy margin and be a usable piece week in and week out as a flex play in fantasy, it's Deontay Johnson. And I think the chances of that happening are higher with Andy Dalton than they are with Bryce Young, something I would not have said 2 weeks ago. Yep. But given how poorly the offense has played through 2 games, I'm willing to bet that Andy Dalton is an upgrade for Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, agreed. He just has to manage the offense. And Deontay Johnson, we know what his best asset, route running. So if he's open, Dalton can get him the football. That's what we know about Andy Dalton. So 22% target share so far. If Johnson in a better, even a below average offense gets that going forward, he'll be fine. I mean, it was just Bryce Young was averaging 4.4 yards per attempt, which is just, it breaks the scale with how poor that is. So Dalton can be below average and still help Johnson get going.
Is your ranking a mistake, or do you really have him as a top 30 wide receiver?
Yeah, 29th. Yeah, I mean, again, the target
share
share's there. And
or do you have him at wide receiver 43?
I am perhaps selfishly hoping that I can reverse jinx this one.
All right.
I have a bad track record with Deontay Johnson.
I only say that because I think we split the difference and we do a top 35 board bet.
I'd be happy because I would love to lose that board bet because I kind of need it in my life.
Is that okay, Mike?
Yeah,
would you,
of course,
would you do
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I realize it's more between you two guys. I wanted to set it up.
I'm going to make myself Mike. You know what, Mike? That's a crazy Deontay Johnson take. I say Deontay Johnson is not a top 35 wide receiver in week 3.
I can't take him serious.
Don't look him in the eyes.
I taught my daughter how to
say-
do a staring contest this morning. It was hilarious.
So good.
I say I will go back-to-back on winning Panthers-related board bets, actually Panthers receiver board bets against Field Yates. And Deontay Johnson will be a top 35 scoring fantasy wide receiver in
Put it
week
on the
3.
board.
Put it on the board.
Love it, guys.
I was
Love
I was so slow at that
yeah, that was like the
audio
watch
played
joke.
before.
They were like, let's just, all right, we're going to play off, Mike. We got to play off.
All right, we
all
got
right.
to do a preview, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Thursday Night Football preview. Let's do this, friends. We waited all show for this. We're talking Patriots at Jets, Battle of the Northeast.
It's a relatively quick preview, huh?
Yeah, it should be pretty easy, actually. When you look at the guys that we have here, there's a bunch of lineup blocks. Obviously, Breece Hall, you're starting. I think so. I think you're starting Breece Hall in this
No,
one.
sorry, there are a bunch of lineup blocks. I don't believe that part is the
Garrett Wilson should also be a lineup block in spite of how difficult it may have been the first 2 weeks. There's no way we're pulling him out of our fantasy lineup here. Ramondre Stevenson locked in as a nice RB2 as well in this one. Any reason to fear this Jets defense, Mike, given what we've seen against them?
They haven't been great so far. They've allowed 15-plus points to Jordan Mason and Tony Pollard so far. So on the ground, we're not really worried about that. Ramondre is, check this out, 3rd at running back in carries, 8th in targets, 1st in opportunities, 2nd in touches, 1st in expected touchdowns. I mean, they're running this offense through Ramondre Stevenson. No reason to think that changes. And I'll tell you what, if you watch that week 1 game with Mason just running over he carried them to a win. He just ran them over. It was kind of embarrassing to watch that Jets run defense. And CJ Mosley, if he even goes in this game, is probably going to be somewhat limited. I mean, he's not 100% with that toe injury. So Stevenson set up for a big game.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I think the entire Patriots offensive line was on the injury report this week. I think 2 of their 5 top offensive linemen have been ruled out already. That being said, it is the Ramondre show, so volume alone makes him a top 20 running back play.
Yeah, really puts him in a good spot. What about Hunter Henry? I mean, we talked about him at the tight end spot. Like, if you really want to throw a dart, how deep of a league would you need to be in to feel like you're going to bench one of the other guys that we just drafted in our redraft league in order to play Hunter Henry?
I play in 12-team leagues where we got a couple of hoarders at tight end. They like people who have 2 tight ends and they just sit one of them each week, and it's like, wow.
I could have really used that guy on my roster.
I'll make a trade. It won't happen, but I would like to make that trade. I guess I just can't get a good grip on this Patriots offense in the passing game specifically. Yeah. Hunter's a really solid football player. I just don't know that I believe it's going to be a thing every week.
I think in one of those, either Focus or FF Now, I have a good starter. I can't remember who it is, like Andrews or something, and then I have Bowers, and I got Likely. So I don't have Andrews, but anyway, I have 3. So if you want to work out a deal, I got a tight end for you.
Is that the league that I have a terrible team in? Or
I don't know. I'll give you Likely from McCaffrey.
Or CJ.
I'm missing.
Likely not going to happen.
But yeah, I have Henry 13th. Again, 31% target share, leads all tight ends. It's early, but they are featuring Stevenson and Henry. Remember, this is a new offense this year, so maybe they just find a way to continue to work Henry in all season long, and he finishes tight end 7. He has that on his resume. It's been a while, but he's done it before.
That's a question.
Yeah.
At what point do we start to get nervous that the Garrett Wilson monster season is just not likely?
I don't know if I'm there yet because he is a 29%
No, I'm not there yet either. But I'm saying,
like,
how long do we have to go before people are like, dude, you guys keep telling me the breakout is here, and it hasn't happened?
I don't know, but like, I don't know. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Like, I know what you're saying. Does he get to that next level?
Hey, you know what I'm saying?
It's fair.
It's like, hey, A.J. Brown or Garrett Wilson was a conversation in the preseason. If A.J. Brown were playing this week and you had the choice between A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson, you'd be taking A.J. Brown, right?
Yeah, it's fair.
I'm guessing. That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know if it's so tricky right now because it seems like so many players are struggling because of just like scoring is down. Like nobody's really. I mean, Jamar Chase too. I mean, he's doing poorly. It's
been tough.
CeeDee Lamb had that long catch, but overall, like he hasn't been at quite that level he was in the second half. It's just you could go Tyreek Hill. You can go on and on and on. So it's kind of everybody now. So I'm not really concerned about it just because he's seeing 30% of the targets and.
I guess the difference is like those guys that you mentioned like have already had those seasons on their ledger.
Yeah.
Right? Again,
That's fair.
I think I'm asking the question that fans are asking us.
I think I would say week 4 for me. Like once I get about a quarter of the way through the season.
Week 4, and he's averaging 5 catches for 62 yards as opposed to 7 catches for 85 yards.
And it's not just about what his stat line looks like. It's not just like a box score. It's how good does Aaron Rodgers look under center there now that he's back and playing. This was one of the big questions. There was a big expectation from all of us, not just that Garrett Wilson was going to be good, but that even though we didn't have Aaron Rodgers as a top guy in fantasy, he was going to be able to sustain the pass catcher that we wanted. So if I'm not seeing that by week 4, that's when I start to have real panic feelings about it.
By the way, Christian Gonzalez treatment in this one. So he'll be shadowing Garrett Wilson, which mixed results so far.
What do you have the numbers last week from Gonzalez?
He was on him. Yeah, I don't have him right in front of me, but he was on Metcalf, I believe, on that broken play where Metcalf went for the long touchdown.
So if you take that away, because his teammate after the game was like, I actually screwed that up.
Oh yeah, he was shadowing him. But I mean, the thing is, Metcalf had a big game overall on top of that play, and also Jackson Smith and Jigba had a big game. So the receivers were performing against this defense. So, kind of mixed results on Gonzalez. He was on Jamar Chase in week 1, but Chase was not a full go coming off that injury. Played, almost 80% of the snaps, but wasn't maybe 100% Jamar Chase. So we'll see. I would say I'm not panicking about the matchup, but there is bust potential with Gonzalez chasing him around.
Yeah. Speaking of Garrett Wilson, we have a fantasy-focused parlay that includes Garrett Wilson as well as Breece Hall and Ramondre Stevenson. We're looking at a Ramondre Stevenson anytime touchdown. Doesn't make a difference if it's on the ground or through the air. We will take it however we can get it. Breece Hall to record 50 or more rushing yards, and Garrett Wilson to get 6+ receptions. Started out at plus 400, now plus 550. By the way, 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Patriots have only faced 26 running back carries so far, lowest in the NFL.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So big Breece Hall night coming tonight.
Well, if that flips. So far, teams have not run against them as well.
No, but I'm saying a big Breece Hall night's coming tonight because I think that this is the night where the Jets just say, I think the Jets adopt the strategy that, let's just get in and out with a win.
Yeah.
Short week, a team that hasn't quite found its mojo, ground and pound with Breece Hall. If that's what it takes to get this win, whether it's pretty or ugly. Go into that mini bye week for the Jets, have a winning record, feel like while it hasn't been perfect so far, we can advance and become closer to the team that Mike Clay forecasted could win the Super Bowl this year. Are you picking them tonight?
I'm picking them tonight, yes.
What, do you have like a random projection score?
I don't have the score in front of me, but I'll have to. Bad job by me. I didn't pull it, but I'll say Jets 21, Patriots 16.
Dang it! That was so I have Jets 2016 was my score that I made of my. I only think of the score for the Thursday night games when Mike already has a score. Who are you taking in this one?
I want to take the Patriots, but I just don't think
it's close.
I don't think I can go against Breece Hall and what I think he's going to be able to do in this one.
I think it's a really close game tonight. I will say this: if there's one thing that I'm watching on both sides, like for the Jets, we talked about it. It's like, does Garrett Wilson kind of get humming a little bit?
Yep.
On the Patriots side, I wouldn't go as far as saying squeaky wheel for Pop Douglas, but like if you're the Patriots and you have this little production from your wide receivers so far this season, is tonight the night where you say number 2 and number 3, Jalen Polk and Pop Douglas, need to become close to full-time players, and we need to scheme opportunities up for them.
Are we going to see, so I know Sauce Gardner doesn't usually shadow Mike, but are we seeing him left side of or on a certain side of the field? Is that more of a Jalen Polk role because he's not going to go in the middle?
Polk will be on the outside. Douglas is in a tough spot. It's Michael Carter, who just got paid by the Jets. He's one of the best slot corners in the NFL, so it might not be a pop night. It's a tough matchup, but say that if DJ Reed's able to go on the outside, he was out last week with Gardner, it's going to be tough for them receivers. This is not a good spot for New England receivers to get going. So
yeah, I just would be curious if they try to scheme up some opportunities for them, because for a team that's lacking explosive playmakers, I think they are the two most explosive they have at wide receiver.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that's going to do it for today. Today's show is presented by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. Guys, we're going to be back tomorrow. Huge Week 3 preview. Diving into everything that we got. Plus, Stefania Bell going to be here. Make sure that we're all set up with all the injury news that we need to have to set our lineups. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy Thursday Night Football.
Except for you, Mike.
Yeah, screw you, Mike Clay.
You guys are mean.